Hi.
Hi.
So today's video. Hello again. Should we do a video together?
Let's do it.
This is another juicy one. This is part of the same series, and it's this constant feeling. I was gonna say nagging, but actually it's a lot more pervasive than that. Of not feeling appreciated, valued, validated in the relationship. So I'll start with me. So I get the impression, I don't know what it is, maybe it's also when we're under a lot of stress and there's a lot of things going on and it's more, my world is more tiring or I don't feel as good, I think I'm much more subject to this. But very often I get this feeling that okay, here's the feeling. I'm working my ass off and I don't feel like I get credit for it. And then there'll be like a moment where you ask for something and then you're pissed off that I don't do it right away. And I'm like, holy smokes, don't you realize what I have done today? You know, and then we end up in these lot of competing things, which is another thing we're going to do a video on like who's working harder and who's more tired. But this feeling of like, it's almost like I'll invest so much of myself in the family, in our stuff, in making food, in changing a diaper, whatever it is. And it isn't suggesting that you aren't, but I know what I'm doing, right? And then kind of this feeling, there'll be like a moment, maybe because I'm tired and I'm more sensitive to it, where it's like, I'm totally undervalued, underappreciated. I don't get enough thank yous. I don't get enough like, oh, thanks for doing this, or this was great, or it's really cool that you did it. And I think there's like at its core, if I'm talking just about myself, there's this insecurity of like not being valued for who I am, what I am, not being significant, and not being recognized as being a big contributor. You go through something similar, right? I think.
Well, I don't know. I'm not there yet. What just came right now, hearing you talk, is I've learned throughout the years that it's especially important for me to make an emphasis on the appreciation that I have for you. But I've only begun doing that. I used to think that, like, of course I love you and of course I appreciate you. I don't feel like I need to repeat it. But now I realize that it matters, it makes a difference. Like if I start a sentence with gratitude, or if with some frequency I remind you how much I love you and need you and love having you by my side, it actually has a positive effect. Like you, yes, it's like filling your cup a bit with like, well, yeah, love and just seeing you.
Okay, but on a lot of occasions, you've come up to me and said, you know, güero, which is what she calls me, güero, because I'm a little bit more whitey. And you've said, you know what, I've done like all these hours with the girls and I just want you to recognize what I've done. I want you to recognize how hard I've worked and it's been so hard and and you don't realize how hard it is. So, I mean, you've approached me with that like need for validation, like just to recognize how hard you're working, you know, and how much you're putting into bringing up our girls or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I'm so tired and it's so taxing to be raising children that I think my ego could do with like one gold medal a day. Like, oh my God, this is so unbelievable. You are so amazing. Here you go. Like, you're a winner once again. But
you don't feel like lacking there? That
yes.
I don't like, you don't get the impression like I'm not giving you the validation or recognition for what you're doing?
Like, what has happened to me is that sometimes I wonder if you do realize like how many tantrums I navigate, or like the deep conversations that I have with our 6-year-old, or how much I comfort and forgive and let go of the stuff that the 2-year-old does, or you know, like all this like invisible emotional work that I'm doing with the girls on a daily basis that at the end of the day, I don't feel drained. I mean, some days I do, but most of the days I'm just exhausted, you know, from like all this emotional, intellectual work that I'm doing with them. So yeah, I think there's a part of me that would want waves of um, validation and appreciation.
I mean, I think also it's really easy to it's really easy to get lost in what we're doing, in the efforts that we're doing, and kind of not have moments where we look and see each other on the same team or on the same boat. So it's kind of like for me, I'll get lost in this. I think I'd mentioned it before, where it's kind of like I feel like an island when there's too much stuff going on or too much that I'm doing, and I feel, even though I know you're doing things, I feel like I'm just like out to sea, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing, and I don't feel like accompanied or like solidarity or like, you know, like it. So I think like the core of this for me also is like, okay, well, let's say this is something that comes up. How do you heal that? How do you work with that? You know, and I think kind of maybe creating these patterns of seeing each other, or just like taking a second once in a while and being like, okay, I see you, and I see what you're doing, and I see what you're all the effort that you're doing, and you know, high five, you know. But like, you know, this idea that we can kind of take a second once in a while, and like you were saying before, like to in a previous video, to celebrate each other, be like, hey, you know, that was a really big meltdown with the girl, and you aced it. Or, you know, like there's a lot of times where we have like disagreements about how to feed the girls, right? What's gonna work? How do we get the little one to eat? And she doesn't want to eat anything, and she doesn't want to eat anything before we go to school, and da 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 da. And then you'll like pull something out of your ass sometimes, or out of your creativity, and be like, do it, and all of a sudden she eats the whole thing, and it's like right on.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with that.
But it's also like this ability to come back into partnership.
You're much better at that than me.
What?
Being vocal about like celebrating me, I think.
Really?
I think so. I think it's been like a year or more that I've been noticing that you take a moment, and like in a different moment of the day, and you're like, I saw you do this, I noticed that like you're the shit.
I think you also gave me a lot of shit prior to that. I think that was I think it was a learned behavior also, where you're like, you know what, you're not, I don't feel valued here. I don't feel appreciated, and and I think I've started to make like a concerted effort to, because to give some backstory on this, my experience, or at least what I remember, is you brought something up of feeling like undervalued by me in your participation, specifically with the girls. And I had the impression that I was already valuing you quite a bit, and that you were a great mother, and And I think you'd mentioned that you feel that I'm saying that you're not a good mother when I criticize you at that time, right? And so I made a concerted effort to be more visible or obvious about when I was kind of like recognizing the different things that you pulled off. Because it's anybody who's kids, even who don't have kids, you're working really hard at a job, and you're trying to work a marriage also. But with kids, for sure, you're in the trenches. You're in the trenches a lot of hours a day, and some of it you don't know how you're gonna make it through. You don't know if you're gonna be like even functional to even have a conversation after. And some days it's not. You know, like there's some days where Zara will go upstairs and she'll put the baby to sleep. Or the baby, we call her baby. She's 2 years old, and that's it. You're out with her also, just because you're exhausted. Yeah. You know, and so I think it's. I think these little things make a huge difference in a marriage. Is you know, these little moments where you can appreciate each other, or just kind of like see each other for, you know, this is someone who's doing half the work here, and they're working their ass off also, you know. And I think it also helps as far as me with the kind of like feeling appreciated. For me, I think it's I'm not sure if I know exactly what it is, but it's like sometimes I feel like I'm not like I think I want to feel recognized for having value for my contribution. I don't know where that comes from exactly, but it's like and then this kind of like need to have that validated. that I'm very valuable, that I'm giving something really
That you
impressive,
matter.
that I
That you're
matter.
making a difference.
Yeah, well, also sometimes it's like when you are working really hard at something and you're investing really hard at something, it's really good to get some feedback where it's like, hey, you slaving over there on like this and that, and you're working your ass off and you feel like you're gonna fall down and collapse. Thank you. You know, there's something about that like moment of gratitude where it's like, oh, okay, I just worked for an hour and a half preparing some sort of food for 4 of us or 5 of us, and someone really liked it. Or someone, you know, because very often you make food for an hour and then the kid's like, I don't like it. I don't like it.
And you know what? I want to take a moment to say that, I mean, we're a heterosexual couple, cisgendered heterosexual couple. And many others, like us, like a lot of the weight of the family and the household is on the woman. In our particular case, you do most of the cooking. You go to the supermarket and take care of that stuff. You take care of like the financial aspect of our lives. And so that's something that historically is heavier on the woman. And it's important to say that for a healthy, functional, powerful marriage and couple, there needs to be a good distribution of that.
And balance and appreciation.
Yeah, because we are kind of balanced, and that makes it so there's like less resentment and more mutual appreciation. But when it's definitely lopsided, well, then it's tricky, you know, to be carrying all that weight on a pair of shoulders. And that's, to me, benching, you know, that's important. The distribution of all those
Cool.
like invisible important things of having a family, a household together.
Also, we should wrap up here, but especially in the case where someone's taking on that part of the thing. So very often you have a distribution of labor where one person in the partnership, when you have kids, or even when you don't have kids, might be working. Well, when you have kids, more. One person might be working, one person might be taking care of the kids, right? And for there to be kind of a reciprocal appreciation of like, hey, thanks for like taking care of these crazy little animals all day long, which was a very hard job, and thank you for going out to some, you know, boring corporate job or some job as a mechanic or a bus driver or whatever it is, and working your shift from 9 to 5 so that, you know, I could be doing this part and we're balancing, you know, and I think it's really important to have that value and gratitude. You know, I think it helps, you know, lubricate a lot, especially in the stressful times.
For sure.
Yeah, so we're good?
There's just one last thing that I want to say. One time, many years ago, I can't even remember how long this was, but we were in a rough patch, and I googled how to know if we should just get a divorce, and I found this article, and it said 11 questions to ask yourself. I can't remember the other 10, but I can remember the one that changed like my inner course in this relationship. And it was, how would your life change if your couple wasn't there? Like what do they do for you? What's their role in their life? What good things are they giving to you in your life? And I think it was in that moment that I had like the awareness, the magnitude of how you enrich my life. And I realized that I had been like pretty entitled and ungrateful to some degree. So yeah, like appreciation and gratitude are huge. And on the other hand, resentment and a lack of appreciation can be extremely detrimental. All right, thank you for watching. Please comment and stay tuned for our next.
Appreciate your partner.
Yes.
Okay, ciao.